Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode, maybe of many, maybe not of many, of the Neurotic Knitter podcast. So, non knitters may not really know what a podcast is or may have a different conception of what a podcast is. In the knitting community, there are a lot of individuals who do kind of like video diaries chronicling their knitting and their fiber adventures and things that are going on in their life. And I have been wanting to do that for a long time and just haven't had the opportunity to, or have found lots of reasons not to. Busy with life, I guess. So I'm excited to share with you. We'll see how this goes. I'm not really a techie or a podcast guru, so we'll see how this first episode shakes out. I have a lot to share with you today. I'm coming to you live from the knitting studio / office. If we're really being honest, it's like 75% knitting studio and 25% office. My poor partner has to deal with, and he's like in this photo back here with me, has to deal with all of my fiber craziness, and in all reality, he's really wonderfully supportive. So for today's episode, I thought I would just share a little bit about myself and a little bit about my personal journey and my fiber journey. A little bit about some of the ideas I have for the podcast and what you might expect, and we'll go from there. So I thought I might start by sharing a little bit about my fiber story. So my grandmother, and many knitters have like this like wonderfully quaint tale of being 7 years old and grandma teaching you how to knit or how to crochet. My story is like somewhere in the middle. So my grandmother on my mom's side, I have all my grandparents still, and my grandmother on my mom's side is very crafty and very like creative. I think in the mid 90s when Martha Stewart was just first gaining popularity, she was subscribing to the magazine that Martha Stewart had, and I remember at the holidays, I would go over to her house and she'd have different like place cards and hollowed out oranges with a candle in them and like all of these Martha Stewart things. But anyway, she used to crochet, and she'd crochet these like massive Afghans, and I just remember them being beautiful, but also like really scratchy and kind of hot and likely made of red heart yarn, which there's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, I remember her crafting, and I always wanted to learn. And when I was in college as an undergrad, I remember going to Michael's and buying all of this yarn and needles and being like, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. And failing like multiple times. I did that multiple times over several years. I would try by myself in isolation, not really knowing like what to do or where to go. And finally, one summer, I think it was 2009. I was in Berkeley, California. I was a camp counselor for a summer camp, and I walked past a bookstore in Berkeley, and I went in and they had a whole section of knitting books, and they had one in particular that was called the Knitting Manual, like knitting manual, but men stuff, male knitting. And I thumbed through that, and there were some really cool guy projects in there. I think I actually only ended up making like one. But I took that book with me, and I was like, I'm gonna really learn how to do it. And I was living in Nashville at the time. I was in grad school at Vanderbilt. And I called up my local yarn store, which I still consider to be my local yarn store, even though I don't live in Nashville, Tennessee anymore. It's a place called Bliss Yarns. You should check it out. If you're ever in Nashville, even if you're not, you can always call them. But anyway, I called them up and I said, I want to learn how to knit. And they said, come in. So a woman named Emily Purdue taught me how to knit. Emily will forever be in my heart for lots of reasons, but she was so kind and patient with me. and she taught me how to knit. I remember like the first 5 minutes in asking her over and over, like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And she's like, as long as you're comfortable, just go with it. I made my first scarf out of Barocco Comfort. It was like a cotton acrylic blend. I should have brought it up here. I'm gonna bring it, if I do a second episode, I'm gonna bring it up here because it's just a big like garter stitch thing. And I gifted it to Mike, my partner Mike. And he still wears it, and it's like disgusting. I mean, it's like the rattiest, grossest old scarf. But he is such a dear, and he won't let me like throw it away or take it away from him. So after I learned how to knit, I wanted to take a class. I was into it. You know, I knit my first scarf in like 2 days. I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed, as you can tell. But I went and I took a hat class. And I was having, you know, I was knitting on my hat. I took my class, and in between classes, I was running into some problems, and I called the store, and they said, well, just come in, you know, come in and sit with us and knit with us. And the rest is history. They basically adopted me. These women in the knitting store, and it really, you know, it's a demographic that still at that time skewed a little bit older. And at that time too, I think it was just when male knitters were coming into prominence again. I mean, there have always been male knitters. I think male knitters have become more visible over the last 5 years for sure. But yeah, they adopted me, and I ended up finding this incredible community of people who lifted me up and have supported me like through my life, through tragedy and through ups and downs and multiple moves and just the trials and tribulations of life. And I think for many knitters, people wonder like why is knitting such a thing, and how do you have all of these random knitting friends all over the country and the world? And it's because it's a really supportive and creative community, a community where really anybody fits in, and anybody can find love, and anybody can find their people. So I'm so blessed to have a fiber story, and I'm so glad I found knitting in my life. That was long, but that's my brief story. I could probably go on for like hours. So my personal story, I'll try to keep that relatively brief, but I'm from Michigan. I don't know if I have an accent, though some people attest that I do. And an odd thing that happens when you move away from your home, which I've done, I moved multiple times, is when you go away for a while and you come back home, you notice the accent. Like, I'm sure that's happened to many of you, but like, I lived in Michigan my whole life, went to college in Michigan. I was trained as a classroom teacher, so my first opportunity to live away was when I went to Florida to teach 7th grade. And I remember coming home at Christmas that year and being like, is that how we sound? We do sound like that. So yeah, I'm from Michigan, just outside of Metro Detroit, in a town called Royal Oak. Those of you familiar with Michigan will be familiar with that town. I did my undergrad at the University of Michigan. I was a classroom teacher by training. I taught 7th grade. So my first move was from Michigan to Jacksonville, Florida. I taught in Duval County Public Schools for a few years. I met amazing people there, some of whom I still keep in touch with, and I always hold those folks in my heart because I met really, really great people. And I think it was that experience that really led me to have such a huge appreciation for teachers and for the teaching profession. Maybe in a later podcast I'll go into more depth about my real personal story. We're just getting to know each other, so we'll keep it kind of light. But I'll keep it simple by saying that I believe that teachers in my own life, so when I was in school, like grade school and high school, they're the reason why I'm before you and I'm not on a different path. But more to come on that. But anyway, so I went to Michigan, I taught. became really interested in education in the broader picture in education, so like policy and like legal stuff related to education. And so I went to Vanderbilt for public policy in education. So that's what my graduate degree is in. And while I was at Vanderbilt, I met my partner, Mike. It's crazy to think that, and that was in 2008, that I started grad school. It's crazy to think, but this summer will be 10 years. I couldn't possibly be that old, but I guess I am. So I went to grad school at Vanderbilt and got my degree in public policy and focused on education policy. Lived in Nashville, which is where Vanderbilt is. And I've worked now a number of jobs in the field of education policy. And so I worked in Michigan, so I actually got to move back to Michigan. So I went from Michigan to Florida to Nashville for grad school, then back to Michigan for my first job out of grad school. Did that for 2 years, moved back to Nashville for another education policy job, so second time in Nashville, huge blessing. And then my partner got a job in Arkansas. And so this happened in 2015. My partner is a college professor. He teaches philosophy, in particular ethics and stuff about Eastern religion. That's like the most I can talk about it because it's very obscure. But anyway, he got this job in Arkansas, and I thought, gosh, what am I ever gonna do in Arkansas? Like education policy in Arkansas, like what could I possibly do? There wasn't a lot going on. But I just started sending my resume out. And I got contacted by an individual at the Walton Family Foundation, my current boss, and asking me if I would be interested in interviewing for this job at the foundation. And I was like, yeah, you know. And so I went for it, and I went through all these interviews and weeks of interviews, months and months of interviews. Went out to Arkansas for the first time. I got to visit. Literally saw a cow on the loose, like my first hour being on the ground in Arkansas, and I was like, oh my gosh, like where am I moving to? Or where am I potentially moving to at that point? And I got the job and I took it. So we moved to Arkansas, and everybody was kind of like, what are you guys going to do in Arkansas? Isn't that, going to be like a super conservative place? Or are you worried about it being so small? And we've just had the best experience so far. Everybody here has been so friendly to us. I think that there's this mindset sometimes, and I'm going to make a generalization, which I'll try not to do as a matter of practice, but I think there's just this generalization that things are in the South are backwards, or that, people, if they're conservative or from the South, are, like full of hate, or, are mean-spirited or are ignorant. And that has not been my experience. So I don't know what more to say about that, except to say that we love it here. We miss being in a big place sometimes, sometimes living in like rural America. It's different. I mean, we live in Fayetteville, which is the college town. So in our metro area, we have about 500,000 people. I work in Bentonville, which is where the home office for Walmart is. It's also where one of the offices is for the Walton Family Foundation. My job is really nerdy, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but essentially I help understand what kind of return on investment or impact the philanthropic giving of the Walton family, particularly in K-12 education, which is one of their areas of giving, is having. So when they make a grant to a community organization, what did we get for that grant? What did they achieve? Did they achieve their goals? Did they better education policy? Did they engage community members? I also get to work a lot with the individual, we call them program officers, but people who are responsible for making grants. And I help advise them on their grants, and I help help them think through how they might measure different things or how they might track progress. Yeah, so it's all kind of nerdy. The last thing I'll say about it, and maybe it'll come up in future podcasts again, I'm sure it will, is that I work with the best people. Like, and I have these moments at work where I'm just like, how did I end up here? Like, this place is amazing. I would have never dreamt in my entire life as a young boy or even in college that I'd get to work for a national foundation, and work with like some of the smartest people in education, and in philanthropy. So it's just like a huge blessing. Sorry, I'm getting like a little emotional about it. Who knew? But I love my job, and it's been such a great thing for me. So, sorry, I have notes, and my computer just went to sleep. So this is like the first of probably many technical errors. I'm a planner by nature, so those people who know me have learned to love that about me, hopefully, or at least tolerate it. Okay, so back to my list. So I told you about work. I told you about my partner. He is amazing. One, he's adorable. Like, he's just the cutest. But two, he has the best heart. We met about 10 years ago. And it's just been an amazing journey. One of the things that makes Arkansas really special for us is we've both been on our own paths for our career. And those of you who have been in super niche fields understand what I'm talking about. So like, his field is really narrow, philosophy. You might think that that's like a really popular area, but it's actually not. Humanities in general are really undervalued in this moment in time. And so for him to find a job has been really difficult. For me, I've had an easier time to find a job, but I've had to kind of move and be open to that. So we've lived apart for many years. There have been times where he's been in Ohio and I've been in Michigan. There's been times when I've been in Tennessee and he's been in Indiana. And so, and Arkansas provided us an opportunity to come together. So we're living together and have been for the last little bit here. And it's just been an amazing, amazing blessing. And he's just a great guy. I also have 2 dogs that I can hear like downstairs right now. So I'm in the upstairs part of our apartment. I can hear them scratching around. They're probably thinking like, what is Dad doing upstairs right now talking to himself like a crazy person? We have 2 Japanese chin. One of them is named Oscar, and the other is named Dogen. So Oscar I got a number of years ago. Oscar's about 7 years old. He's black and white. He's kind of our grumpy old man. So he's very sweet. He loves people, but he's not too crazy about other dogs. And he likes structure and routines. So like he doesn't respond well to change. So I don't know where he got that from, but he's our old guy. And then we have Dogen. Mike named him after some ancient philosopher from Japan, I think. And he's our new guy. We got him this past fall, so fall of 2017. He's red and white, or lemon and white, depending on how you want to describe it. And he's a firecracker. He's crazy. He just like runs around, and he has a ton of energy, and he's very social. He also is like oddly human. He just has a very expressive personality, and he's just a love. He loves to be held. He loves to be pet. He loves to be played with. So we have these 2 dogs. We're obsessed with them, probably to like a weird degree. But I think a lot of dog owners are like that. But I'm telling you, if you ever are in the market for a dog and you want a purebred dog, Japanese chin. They're amazing. They're super smart. They're super sweet. They're mellow. They're really easy to take care of. They're like the best. So that's a little bit about me. Took way too long, of course, which is shocking because I'm not really like that much of a talker. and I'm actually kind of shy by nature. You might not know it if you were watching this podcast and this is your only exposure to me. Public speaking is not my thing. I've probably said like 85 times, which you're not supposed to do. But anyway, there it was again. What is this podcast going to be about? So here are some things that you can expect. First, knitting, obviously. The Neurotic knitter. So I'm really particular about everything, but in knitting, I'm like super particular. I want my projects to look nice. I like to use really nice yarn. This is making me sound like an elitist. Maybe I am. But I guess my thinking is if I'm going to spend precious time working on something, I want it to be correct and I want it to be really beautiful. So knitting. So one of the things that I wanted to I'm gonna plan on doing each time, and a lot of knitting podcasts do this, is sharing some of your like finished projects and like things that you've been working on. So because it's behind me, I feel like I should share this beautiful piece right here. And let me take it out. So, and I'll just hold it up to the camera. This piece is by my dear friend Cassie Monksgard. It is knit out of a yarn from the Plucky Knitter called Snug Fingering. It's one of my absolute favorite yarns to knit with. It's very fuzzy, not very fuzzy, but like a little fuzzy, as you could maybe see like there. It's super soft. The yarn itself has wool, alpaca, and cashmere, so it's like just a beautiful, super soft yarn. And this pattern from Cassie, the name of it is escaping me. Oh my gosh, I'm like the worst friend ever. Cassie's like one of my best friends, or one of my dear friends, and I'm forgetting the name of this shawl. I want to say it's Fashionably Late, but that feels wrong to me. Anyway, Cassie Monksgard on Ravelry, if you are interested. It's all garter. I knit a lot of garter projects, not exclusively, but like I don't like to be stressed out when I knit. So like I don't do a lot of cable work. I don't do a ton of lace work. I know lots of people love that kind of stuff, but for me, I try to have it be a relaxing thing. But yes, so that's one. The other one I'm super excited about as well. Just finished this one. This one is called Sky's the Limit. So it's a scarf where it's got some sections, and I'm actually doing it reverse. So you start with like this texture section, you go into stockinette, you go into stripes, 1x1 stripes, then you go to a middle section of texture, rugby stripes, and then some lace work at the end. This was so fun for me. So like, I don't know about other knitters, but for me, a key to me like getting addicted to a project is when I have sections. And so on this piece, there were like 5 different sections, and so it breaks the knitting up into manageable pieces, and it gets you motivated to move on to the next section. So like I just knit this one like super fast. The yarn is snug worsted, and it's from the Plucky Knitter as well. So this one was snug fingering, so lighter weight yarn. This one is the heavier weight snug worsted. Snug is like my favorite base from Plucky Knitter. I have lots of favorites from them, and I'm really a huge fan of the Plucky Knitter and her company and her yarns. It's a Michigan-based company, so of course I love that. And again, it's been such an amazing community of people who have welcomed me in. So other things that are happening. So I ordered some die-craft needles, Diacraft, something like that. So I'm super excited about that. That was like an unintended, like naughty purchase. These are supposed to be like ultra luxury needles. So I'm excited to try them. We'll see. I think they're shipping soon. They should be here maybe this weekend or early next week. I'm always interested in trying new gadgets out, so that'll be kind of cool. So on the podcast, I might update on gear or knitting tools or different things that I'm finding that are tools of knitting that I can share with you all. Other things that I'm going to talk about, pop culture. So I love pop culture. I'm a huge reality television fan. I guess it's like a guilty pleasure. One of my absolute favorite shows, this is going to make me like sound like the gayest person ever, which is okay, is RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm like a RuPaul's Drag Race scholar. I will go head to head with any other RuPaul Drag Race fan, and I will win in trivia. So if you ever need somebody who knows pop culture on your trivia team, I'm the one. It's funny because I work with nerds. I am a nerd. So all of my nerd colleagues like know like the like kind of classic nerd stuff like literature and like music and art and languages. Like they're all like much more cultured than I am. I'm like a blue collar boy from like Metro Detroit. I'm like, I know all about TMZ and RuPaul and like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Like I'm like bringing that to the table at like a nerd level. So RuPaul's Drag Race, it's so funny because it's my favorite show, like this season 10, the season that's going on right now. I'm not loving it. I'm not like, I usually have like an early favorite or somebody who like catches my heart that I like want to root for. Not this season. I don't know. Maybe in a future podcast, somebody will like have a breakthrough moment, which often happens on RuPaul's Drag Race. The queen has like a teary moment and, we see like a softer side. But nobody yet has really kind of been a front runner for me. The show, which I should have explained at the beginning, is like a competition reality show where drag queens compete in different challenges week to week. They're then judged on the challenge plus their runway look. So they have like a beautiful a runway look, and it's like themed, like different themed categories. Like it might be like apocalypse was a theme one time. It might be a color. It might be all about like an accessory. Like one was all focused around hats. But anyway, they get judged on the challenge and their look. And then the two bottom queens, the ones that are in the bottom, have to do a lip sync, which is a common thing for drag queens to do. A lip sync for their life, and then one gets eliminated based upon the lip sync. So anyway, I'm obsessed with the show. I have figurines behind me. I don't know if you guys can see them. They're like right here. They're Funko, like RuPaul's Drag Race figurines. Crazy. But also really cool. So I'll talk about other television shows too. Like one thing that I saw, or actually two things. One thing I'm also obsessed with are The Voice and American Idol. The Voice more so than American Idol. I'm a little bit behind on both, so maybe next time I'll catch up on those. But yeah, that's like my TV stuff. I also watch a lot of Home and Garden, but like I don't think I'm gonna come here and talk to you about House Hunters, although I do watch a lot of that. And I do watch a lot of Chip and Joanna, and I like kind of like love them too. Okay, so a couple things to wrap up, because we're like now in like minute 30 and everybody out in TV land, like you're probably asleep. So I recently went to Dallas Fort Worth Fiber Festival. This happened in, I think it was early April. Living in Arkansas, whenever there's something that's close that I can go to, I try to go to it. So this was my first time going to Dallas Fort Worth, and I loved it. It's a great show. I don't know if people realize, like maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag, and I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag, but like it's a really great show. There are lots and lots of good vendors there. It's not crazy crowded. There's a wonderful like section in the middle of the event center where you can knit and hang out with people. And I discovered some dyers, some new dyers that I'm like so pumped about, which I'll talk about in a minute. So that's going to be a segment on my like little podcast show too. But I got to see my old friend Natalie at Dallas Fort Worth. It was so fun. I haven't seen her in years. She's like salt of the earth, like nicest person you will ever meet. She's married. She's working as a teacher. I think she's working as like an interventionist, which is like a teacher, but a teacher that works with special needs students or students who are struggling. So I got to catch up with her. I got to have dinner one night with Rick from Whimsy Stitches. So those of you who know Whimsy Stitches and their wonderful project bags, which I got this cute little like beaver, I guess these are beavers, but like nerdy mustache, like lumberjack beavers, which I think is so cute. And there's like plaid on the inside. Rick's bags are really great, by the way. If you ever are interested, it's Whimsy Stitches on Etsy. But I got to have dinner with Rick. We only knew each other online, and we got to go and have like a wonderful dinner and just like get to know one another. And it was really fun. He's like the nicest guy. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it if you're in the area and you're looking for something new to do. Dallas Fort Worth Fiber Festival. Totally worth it. Okay. So a couple other things to close. Let me get my I have like a pile of stuff down here. It's like my props I'm pulling out. So I want to share two other things, knitting related. So another thing that I'm going to share on my podcast is my projects that are in progress. I am really bad with starting projects and not finishing them. I'm on the record. I'm just going to let you know. I've got like a million works in progress, or whips as we call them in the knitting world. And I don't care. Like, I love to cast it on. Sometimes I finish. I really try to finish most of the time. But I'm human. Sometimes I get bored with something. Sometimes I throw it to the side and it never gets done. So like if I step over here, like there's like a bunch of whips over here. They're in project bags. Some of them might be like 8 years old. I don't know. They're from like 2010. And maybe I'll finish them one day. Or maybe I won't. I don't know. But anyway, here's one. Product placement, Fringe Supply Company, orange bag. I got this when I was in New York at Christmas time. You can only get this bag at Pearl Soho. I love it. I also love Shelly Can. I'm sure like Shelly Can's like all the rage right now. I really want to meet Shelly Can. She's like super cool and I love her pins. And these are like, I got the little like slow knitter sloth, the I Feel Like Knit, and then my favorite is the Yarnold Palmer, like Arnold Palmer, but with yarn. And it's funny because Arnold Palmers are like probably 50% of what I drink. And the other 45% of what I drink is LaCroix. LaCroix. Love LaCroix. Except for coconut. I hate coconut. And if you like coconut, wrong. You're wrong. Coconut is disgusting. Anyway, I digress. So, work in progress. Okay, so this is like a little preview of what I'm going to talk about in a minute under my like favorite new dyer section. But I'm working on this. One of the things I'm working on is called Speckled Fade Dotted Rays. So Stephen West, who's a knitwear designer and a prominent male knitwear designer, and he's known for being like edgy. He definitely has a perspective, like a fashion designer that's kind of out there and has like a particular unique aesthetic. He has a very particular point of view when it comes to knitting designs. This one's actually a little bit like tame for him, but you can see like it's so fun. You start with one color and then you blend like that color and the next color, and then you go into a section with just the one color, and then you continue on. So like the next section will be like blending this color with the third color and onward and onward. The yarn I'm using is from Leon Alexander Yarns. That's Leon Alexander Yarns. The base is their Countess fingering base. It's actually like a really great blend. It's a 85 wool and 15 nylon, which I don't see that a lot. I usually see like 80-20 or 100% wool. So I'm really in love with the base. I also got to meet the dyers from Leon Alexander. So Logan and Jose, they're like the nicest. Like, I guess I'm gonna say that like every podcast, but like Logan and Jose from Leon Alexander, so nice, just so nice. They help me pick colors. They're so talented. Like, their yarn is like nothing I'm seeing right now. It's kind of in the speckled, brightly colored arena, but it's not. It's more like streaky, but like in a really good way. So spectacular yarn and really nice guys. A company worth supporting. Like, you should go buy their yarn. So that was my speckled fade dotted rays. I always forget that like full name of that one. And then my most recent obsession, again, product placement, knitting necessities bag, also from Fringe Supply Company. Seeing a Theme, Fringe Supply Company, love them. So the other one that I'm working on is the Stevie shawl from Plucky Knitter. Stevie, like Stevie Nicks, Stevie. I think I got that right. Spelling, not my forte. Stevie. And this shawl, so it's from the Plucky Knitter. The Plucky Knitter was, often when she publishes a pattern, she has yarn support for it. So it's like, she'll publish the pattern, and then she'll say like, here's the yarn I would use for it, or here are some things you could buy to support producing the product. And she was showing gradients, so like light green to dark green, hot pink to dark pink, etc. My friend Cassie, who I mentioned earlier, said, wouldn't it be cool if somebody did like a rainbow one? And I was like, yes, like that is such a good idea. And I had rainbow, like a rainbow set in my stash to work with. So here it is. And I started with blue, and then green, and then a gold, and then like a burnt orange, and then like an autumn red. I'm calling it like an autumn rainbow because these are really like not neon colors. They're more autumn colors. They're darker, but they're still kind of in that rainbow spectrum. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this piece is it's using a technique that is called marling. People who are knitters are like, yeah, Drew, I know all about that. But for those of you who are not knitters, it's a technique where you're holding two strands of yarn together at the same time. So you can see I'm working on the red section, and I've got a red and then a cream. And I've been holding the cream throughout the whole piece. The piece will end with some like wild fringe, so I'm like super pumped about that. But I'm basically obsessed with this. Like, I have not even been working on this a week, and I'm like already to the 5th stripe, which for me, again, I'm a slow knitter, so it's kind of crazy. But I can't put it down. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'll probably work on Stevie tonight because I'm loving that one. And then when I'm done with Stevie, I'm going to go back to the Speckle Fade because I just really love that one too. Okay, so that's what I'm working on. So, last thing, this is like the longest podcast ever. Nobody's going to watch to the end, but hopefully, maybe they will. I wanted to share some of my stash acquisitions from Dallas, Fort Worth. So I showed you already some of the Leon Alexander yarn in the Speckle Fade. Here are the 3 other colors. Sorry, tag's in the way. That I'm going to be using. Aren't those great, guys? Oh, I love, like, it's so funny because I'm not like a hot pink guy, but I love this. Like, very cool. This one's called Poolside. Gorgeous. This one has like a little bit more blue and purple in it. It's called In His Eyes. Love it. And then this was a special one that they did for the show. It's called Under Texas Skies. Again, it's like super cool. Speckles and hot pink and black and like a cool like purpley blue. Love. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So I got that. I also couldn't help myself and I got more of their yarn. So I got one of their yarns. This one's called Shark Bait. It's a fingering weight yarn. It's one of their more popular colors, Logan tells me. Really cool. I don't know what it's going to go in yet, but something cool. And then I got a few skeins of their DK weight yarn. And this color is called Scallywag. Anybody who knows me knows that this is like drew in a skein of yarn. These are like all the colors I like green and black and rust and like cream and brown, like anything autumn. I mean, you can look up there and see that like that's a lot of what I have. So Scallywag. And what's kind of cool about Leon Alexander, by the way, he does collections. So like kind of like, again, a fashion designer would do a collection and the collection would have a theme. He does that with the colors. So like this one came from the Ahoy Matey collection. So Scallywag. Ahoy Matey, Scallywag, yeah. He did a series that was Bollywood inspired. Those colors were super cool, like totally outside of like my personal, what I like would normally knit, but I love, and I included a lot of those in that speckled fade. And he's always coming up with new ideas, and he's got a club too, so you should check him out. Okay, I also, last thing, I think, or second to last thing, I also got some yarn from Canon Hand Dyes, Amy Lee, who's like also another one of these just like nicest people ever. So the Yarn Harlot made this shawl recently using Amy's yarn. It's called the Russell Street Shawl. Russell Street Shawl. I'm saying things multiple times because I just got braces. I'm like in my mid-30s. I won't say the exact number, but like middle 30s, and I just got braces. And I'm getting used to them. It does make me talk funny. I hope you're all able to understand this podcast. But anyway, back to this. So the project, you knit most of it in this like a kind of an oatmeal-y gray color. This is a yarn I'm really excited to work with. It's called Bruce Yak Merino. And this is like the naked or undyed yarn, and it's just gorgeous. Like, look at that. It's so soft, and it's got like a little bit of a shine, like almost kind of like silk has. And so I've got this kind of like oatmeal color, and then you incorporate like a rainbow. And so of course I love like autumn dark rainbows. So I got this cool little kit. It's got like 20 little skeins that will be used to make the rainbow. So again, this is from Canon Hand Dyes, Amy. Amazing, like nicest lady ever. So that's what's going on in my world. My first podcast. I don't know if I was successful. Hopefully people will join and watch. I don't know how often I'll do this. I like expressing myself though, and I like having a place where I can share and I can kind of like nerd out with other knitting people. So yeah, I'm super pumped. A couple other things as I close out. One, this is my wall of yarn. There are also cabinets of yarn below. It's a little insane, I know. My dear partner put this up for me, and I just love it. If you have a space and you can do something like this, it's so easy to do. All we did is we went to Home Depot. We got them to cut a piece of pegboard for us. We got a couple, I think, like 2x4s or 1x4s. Mike's the expert with crafty stuff, or with like hardware fixing things. But anyway, we were able to put it on the wall, and then I got those like long pegs to hang the yarn. So it's like my own little like yarn store. It's kind of nice because you can see everything. So it's not like buried in bins, hiding away. Like you can kind of put things together. You can see I've got like things I'm thinking about kind of on my cabinets. So that's my yarn wall. Maybe next time we'll take like a look through that. And I think that's it. Oh, the other thing I'm excited about, really quick. There's a new yarn store opening in Bentonville. It's called Hillfolk, HILLFOLK Yarn Shop. I'm super pumped. I just learned about this. We desperately need good yarn stores in our area. We don't have a ton. We've got 2 that are really great, and the ladies who own those are really wonderful. But really excited about Hillfolk, and I'll keep you up to date on that. Maybe I'll go visit one time live if I can get that like complicated. But anyway, thank you for joining. Thank you for staying with me if you made it all the way to like minute 46 of this podcast. I'm so appreciative of all of you out there who have been friends to me, who have messaged me or texted me or liked my post on Instagram, or just been friendly to me over the years. It really means a lot to me, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. So that's all for today. Love you guys. Neurotic Knitter podcast. Maybe the name will stick, and more to come.